Hey everybody, it's Pete Carmasino here at Chaikin Analytics. This is our halftime show here on StockCharts TV. We do it once a week. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. It's February 14th, day after the Super Bowl. And we are seeing a little red. Got to use the pun here for Valentine's Day. But we're seeing green on the NASDAQ, on the Qs. We got up about 0.5% as I'm filming right now. And we're going to look at some of those tech names today. I want to dive into something called the New York FANG Plus Index. It's 10 names. You've all heard of them, or heard of all of the stocks that are in the index. They're mega cap names. You know, your Apples, your Facebooks, Meta, Microsoft, Alphabet. All of those names are represented. There's a few foreign names like Alibaba, BABA symbol. So I'm just going to dive through those. We're going to look at the the NYSE FANG Plus chart first, and then we'll look at each name and the components that make it up. And because it's not really an ETF, it's an actual index, we can chart it on the ACP platform, which is nice. I can't chart it on the Chaikin side, but I have all the stocks, which actually creates a portfolio and something really interesting there that you can take a look at that you can actually use on the ACP. If you use our plugin, you can kind of duplicate what I'm doing here today. So let's dive into the charts and see what we see. All right, folks, here we are back at the ACP platform and the Chaikin platform. It's kind of what we do every week. It's we kind of swap in between the charts, or charting systems, I should say, looking at the same charts, but on different platforms. You know, and as you can see here, I've got the plugin, really simple to do. You know, you can find all the plugin options down here, but when you get Chaikin, our little logo pops up there, and you can see all of the stocks, how they're rated, and based on the financials, earnings, technicals, and experts. Now, there's 4 main factors, and each of these have 5 sub-factors. So it's a 20-factor model that makes up the rating. So we're going to look at the FANG index. As I said, we're not going to be rating this index, but this is something that we provide on a weekly basis. We show our subscribers sort of what we're seeing, sort of the action on this particular index, where it's been having trouble, what kind of trend it's been following, which it's really been almost scripted. Found support down here, and again, this is an index of those 10 large names right here, right? Amazon through Tesla, and you know, it helps you kind of identify what the overall theme just of mega cap tech is. Now, obviously, I have down here, this is the U.S. 10-year Treasury. We know that these are sort of anti-correlated, and that happens from time to time. When rates start to rise, this starts to fall. You can see it happened here. And it happened again here, and now it struggled a little bit. And this was a range. These 2 horizontal lines here were kind of a range that was sitting in between for quite some time. And now look at that; it's become a little bit of resistance, right? So how do you know what's going on in an index? You got to look under the hood, and you can look inside of the index. So we're going to start. It's alphabetically here. So we're going to look at Amazon, which is having, you know, a pretty decent day, up 3% today. Now that's after some wild swings here, but certainly after a downtrend, right? You can see your RSI was trending lower, and that was really pinned underneath the 50. So that's always a good representation too. And obviously the MACD was giving you that same kind of signal along with the moving averages. However, we look at our rating here on Chaikin Analytics. If I pop over to Amazon and take a look at what's going on here, see, our rating was kind of in a tug of war with itself here, back and forth, kind of unsure. But I will tell you this: sometimes the market can override, and often does, the rating. And that means that if relative strength and all of these other items that we looked at, RSI, MACD, moving averages, are sort of against it, it's going to typically win, right? The market is going to win. Follow the trend. The trend is your friend. You know all the sayings. So when you start to see that happen, along with a rating change right around that 3,400, we talked about this one before, but I just want to reiterate that we're now below that sort of that sideways range trade, or range bound trade that Amazon's been in, and now that bottom of that range is becoming resistance. Look familiar? It looks a lot like the FANG index. Okay, so there's no doubt that a lot of these charts might start to look the same, but let's take a look at Alibaba here. All right. So this is a consumer discretionary and a broadline retail type name out of China. And you can take a look at what's happening here. BABA is a symbol, but this one has been neutral and is neutral. Now we know that Chinese tech in general has been under pressure because of government policies and things of that nature. But this is just wow. This is amazing. Now this is what most people would call a falling knife, and it continues to fall. So the knife didn't even hit the ground yet, and it does, and it has its fits and starts again when somebody upgrades China and says it's way undervalued or whatever the case may be. Don't get caught into that whipsaw, right? Just follow the trend, right? Well, that's what the ratings for. That's what all of these technical indicators are for that ACP and StockCharts provide. And they're telling you the moving averages are kind of fighting back and forth, also in a tug of war. But when you start to look at the rating, we've been neutral to bearish, back to neutral again. So it is happening to where it is sort of trending. But you got to remember something. So if it starts to break above and starts to break out, that could just be the market trying to signal maybe it's going to try to fill a gap and things of that nature. And waiting for the rating is probably one of the most important parts here on this one. Let's look at Baidu, another Chinese communication/internet company. Now, this one actually is almost, dare I say, basing a little bit, but it is kind of back and forth. It's creating a range-bound trade somewhere between these areas of that, just around 175 down to about 150, maybe 140 or so. But if I put the crosshairs on, you can see that better. So if I go to like about 168 down to 145 or so, right? So about a 20 or 25 point range. And you start to see this basing back and forth. Obviously, there's value here, right? But the important part is that you don't want to pay the opportunity cost, right? Do you want to be in a name that's still falling and not trending properly? Now, relative strength starting to change here. I can't ignore that. I'm not going to deny it. I see it, and it is above the long-term trend. But you do have to be careful here. This could be a technical trade, but this one actually doesn't look bad, really, in the grand scheme of things, except for the rating, right? And so fundamentally, maybe folks, the investment participants, the market participants around the globe, really could ignore bad fundamentals on this one. But I don't know if that's the best idea in this type of market that we're seeing, right? Where rates are rising and you've got a bit of a headwind here. So this one requires a little bit more work sort of under the hood inside of that particular name. Meta and Facebook has just had its terrible problems. I mean, what we're seeing here is pretty. I would say it's unprecedented for this particular stock. We've seen this before in other names, but this is really the first time we've seen Facebook really take it on the chin and knock it off the canvas yet, because we are in a downtrend. Now, look, we're neutral positive from a fundamental standpoint. Obviously it's got good metrics, and don't forget our financial metrics have value in them. So price to sales and price to book are neutral, right? They're obviously getting better because the price is going lower, but you can't use one indicator to make a decision on a stock. You got to use everything. You got to use your trend. You got to use your technical. You have to use some of the expert opinions here. And we're seeing a lot of downgrades, right? Maybe that's not done. That's a tough one to fight for a while, right? So, Meta, Facebook, however you want to call it, is in a downtrend, and it's not helping that overall FANG index, not at all. Here's Alphabet, symbol GOOGL, Google. A similar kind of trend where it's been range bound, it's been back and forth, very choppy, no doubt. And what are we talking about? A neutral plus name. So again, that's also a name that has good fundamentals, but now you're looking at sort of the technicals coming into question. Now it's back and forth here, right? On our relative strength, money flows negative. We've got an overbought setup here, and that's after it hit that big resistance, after that big news, that they made, the announcement after earnings and all the other stuff that came out. Look, it's positive. We like Google. We use it all the time. It's become sort of a verb, right? You Google things now. You don't search for things. And that's been quite some time. I'm kind of dating myself, but I can remember when it did come out and I thought, wow, this is so nice and easy and clean, and I love it. And, look what happened over the years. The stock has had an incredible run, but sometimes it's going to run into areas of problematic environments in the market. And we're kind of seeing that now. This one's a little bit better positioned. It's not breaking down terribly. You have the long-term trend still kind of holding flat, but overall, this one's going to be maybe one to watch as a signal if big tech is done selling off, right? If you start to see the leaders emerge quicker and faster, you might see that. I just realized I forgot to put Apple in here. So let me just add Apple real quick. And I was thinking about it because I was like, well, where's Apple? How come it's not in there? Alphabetically, it should be at the top. So let's take a look. Let's jump back to Apple. We haven't reviewed this one many times. But again, here's a nice long-term trend that's actually holding up. We do have a moving average across here. Your RSI is kind of living in that 50 point range, or the half of the middle range of the RSI. And even on the MACD, it's kind of living around the zero line. But if I go back and look at Apple on our chart, we're neutral plus as we are in a lot of these names. And this is the cool feature. Look at all of these names. Fundamentally, they're all strong except for the two names that are not headquartered in this particular country. Now, that means we've got 10 names, all neutral. And that was the cool trick I was trying to show you that you can duplicate here, because you can create this same list and pop through them, keep your notes, and you can see they're all neutral. So this is almost like a portfolio review. And if I looked at this, I'd know I have no bears and no bulls, but I do have bullish stocks that are breaking trend. And that's what we're seeing on Apple and a lot of these names. So it's back and forth, back and forth. If the stock gets above the long-term trend, we're bullish. And if you see that on ACP, that's something you got to be reminded of. Let's take a look at Microsoft real quick. And we got a couple more. We're going to have to go really quick here. Always running out of time. I'm too long-winded. I apologize. So here we go. Microsoft, same kind of setup here. You're seeing a big move higher, but because of rates and a lot of things that have come out, and even their earnings, after earnings, it wasn't a great reaction to the name. But again, it's all about guidance. It's all about looking forward. Again, a bullish name that's broken its trend, and now we've got a negative relative strength. So not really liking it. It's overbought. But again, we want to look toward these particular leaders, the names like Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, even Tesla to a degree, but certainly NVidia and Netflix. These are leaders in this mega cap space, and we want to make sure that we're paying attention to what they're doing. Let's pop through Netflix real quick. That one just had a terrible quarter, a lot of competition, but at the same time, Netflix is a really interesting service. I like it because I pay one price and I pop on there, and I know I'm not paying for anything else after that. But from the chart perspective, the relative strength broke down in the 600 area, and it's never looked back, right? So again, not helping that overall FANG index. Let's look at NVIDIA, and we'll kind of stay on our charts here till the end, and I got to get Tesla in there too. NVIDIA, almost an identical chart, also overbought and a negative relative strength. And of course, Tesla, our favorite electric vehicle maker out there, it's got everything you want in a stock, right? It's got momentum. It's got, a character and a very charismatic leader, and really cool cars, and it's got everything you want. But it is breaking down. We have a weak trend and a weak industry. The relative strength's not terrible, but it is negative and overbought. So overall, that FANG index is looking pretty weak for a reason. And now the components are really pushing it. Okay, folks, that's all we have for today. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you tuning in and, week in and week out. This was a quick one, and I almost ran out of time, but I do have a chance to say goodbye, and have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.